My name is Sona Dave, and I am an adolescent medicine physician for Northwell Health. So teens should care about heart health because habits that they make in their teenage years kind of stay with them lifelong. So making good decisions in terms of eating, in terms of activity, in terms of stress management, that's really the foundation for lifelong health for our teenagers. I don't want teenagers to worry or their parents to worry so much about their heart health. I want them to have the knowledge and feel empowered to make decisions that are going to set them up for lifelong success. So that goes back to eating habits, developing a healthy mindset regarding stress and physical activity. So that's what I would want. I would want them to have the knowledge and then use that knowledge to make good decisions in all of their, whatever they decide to be doing. Some of this has to do with increasing screening and awareness. So patients and parents are coming in just more aware that these are issues that may affect young people, and also providers and physicians are more aware and likely doing more screening for these diagnoses. However, we also are seeing increasing access to processed food, to screen time, which increases sedentary lifestyle, and also increasing levels of stress, which long-term leads to issues with heart health. Young people are facing a lot of pressure based on what they see on social media. On social media, we often see the best version of people and the most fun thing that they're doing in that day or in that week. So it leads to lots of comparison about not only what they have, how they look, what they have access to in terms of material things. So it does lead to a lot of comparison and then negativity and self-doubt. So it's important for parents to model the behavior of how do we put the phone down? How do we set boundaries for ourselves that we know that this is not, viewing this person's profile is not making me feel good about myself. Maybe I need to not follow them or just take a break from social media for a while. So how do we not only do that as teenagers, but also how do we model that as adults? When I see patients in an exam room, the teenagers on the phone, the parents on the phone, and we know everybody's busy, but I do often ask, okay, how was that interaction at home when you're coming home from school or at the dinner table, for example? So how do we model putting the phones down and interacting with each other so that we're not constantly on them? So I think what's important in terms of stress reduction for teenagers is identifying for them that stress is part of the human experience. So all of us undergo stress. How do we manage that stress and utilize the tools that we have and model those tools for young people? So I think that it's important to validate the young people's feelings of stress and essentially give them the tools over time by modeling those behaviors on how do you deal with those high levels of stress, how do you tolerate levels of frustration, and how do we do that in a way that we're teaching our children, yes, stress is there, stress is real, but you can still accomplish the thing that's causing that stress to you. Nutrition is so important for our teenagers. Nutrition and food is our fuel. So we need the right balance of nutrition, and that comes from all of our macronutrients. So that includes our proteins, our fats, our carbohydrates, including fiber. We need the right balance of nutrition, but for growing teens, what's so important is that they also get the right quantity of nutrition. So for teenagers, they're in peak growth, peak time in their life where their insides are growing and their outsides are growing. So they're very metabolically active. So therefore, your teenage years is when you need more nutrition than any other time in your lifespan. So it's important for teenagers to get the right balance, but also the right quantity and portions of food. movement is really medicine. I really truly believe that in my own personal life, in my life with my own children. So we need to, emphasize movement and just getting up and going. So once again, lots of modeling of that type of behavior for our young people and getting them physically active. If you're going to the mall, park really far, take the stairs instead of the escalator. These are small things that you can just build into your daily routine and habits that you're modeling for your children as a way to be physically active. For some of my families that I take care of, that they may not have access to outdoor space, or it may not be safe for them to be outdoors, or it's too cold to be outdoors, everyone put your phones down. Let's turn on some music. Let's do some silly dance moves together. It causes an increase in bonding, in time together, and it gets us to be physically active. So each family has a different thing that works for them, but I would say to find something that works for your family to increase everyone's movement and do it together. Vaping is unhealthy. It is harmful for young people because young people still have a developing brain. And nicotine, which is in vapes, causes disruption to brain development. It can also cause heart issues like increased heart rate, blood pressure issues. So therefore, vaping is not a safe alternative to smoking, which sometimes it's viewed as. So the way caffeine and alcohol can affect heart health in growing teens is, so for caffeine, what can happen is that it can actually increase anxiety. And it can also increase racing heart or palpitations in our young people. And it can also increase their feelings of just not being able to sleep, right? And sleep hygiene is so important for our young people. So it's important that if they are consuming caffeine, which I normally recommend for my teens to try and really eliminate caffeine, but if they can't, to try and consume it early in the day so that they don't have those negative effects altogether, or at least they don't have those effects affecting their sleep. And then for alcohol for teenagers, so there's no amount of alcohol that's safe for a developing brain. And I think it's really important for young people to understand that their brains are still developing up until their early 20s, no matter how mature they are or how mature their parents think they are. So it's really important that they try and stay away from these substances that can truly negatively affect brain development and can have lifelong consequences in terms of mental health and physical health. So oftentimes I see teenagers that are not getting the sleep that they need because they're spending lots of hours on their screens and hours on their screens right before bedtime. So usually what I advise to my patients and their families is to try and put that screen away at least an hour or two before bedtime. If you can, get it across the room, or even better yet, get it out of the room altogether so that you're not tempted to go and pick it up. So I do recommend often to try and get an alarm clock that's like a standing alarm clock, not on the phone, so that you can actually get that phone away from you during bedtime. Habit building around sleep routines is really hard. But one of the tricks that I try to employ when I hear about young people that are in a similar situation where they're sleeping at 2, 3 in the morning and then waking up very late is actually to do an incremental approach. So, for example, you're not going to be going to sleep at 2, 3 in the morning every day and then all of a sudden be sleepy at 10. So oftentimes what we'll do is say, set yourself up for success and try to now make it a point to go to sleep by 1 a.m. Then maybe after a week by midnight. Then maybe after a week by 11. And you have to do something that works for you, your family, your schedule, your, whatever your work life is. So it's important to kind of take that into account and in building that routine. I don't think that there's a one size fits all for all families. How can teens and moms or parents and caregivers survive together? So there's a saying that when you have kids, everybody gives you advice. And then when those kids turn into teenagers, nobody gives you advice. And that's because nobody knows what to do. So I think that it is very hard for parents to understand what their young people need. And oftentimes I spend a lot of time with young people, and what I hear from them is that they just want to be heard. They don't necessarily need to be right or wrong. They just want to be heard. So I think building those lines of communication and making that time in our busy lifestyles, we can often go full days without talking to family members. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, to really spend that time connecting, I think is so important to give them that space to potentially open up. So puberty and menstruation does play an important role in heart health. So puberty is driven by development, and that development is driven by nutrition and nutritional choices. So it's important for young people to get their annual checkup to make sure that they're growing according to their growth trend and what is normal for their growth trajectory, so that we can make sure that they're going through that process of puberty at the right time. Once they have their menses and they are menstruating, which is getting their period, we want to make sure that those periods are normal. There can be issues with excessive bleeding, menorrhagia, or no bleeding, amenorrhea, that can all be secondary to medical issues. So it's important to talk about these things to your pediatrician so they make sure that they're not missing an alternate diagnoses. There are some diagnoses, such as polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is PCOS, that do have long-term effects on our bodies, which can contribute to heart issues. So it's important for young people, if they are having issues with their menses, to seek out care and support to figure out what's normal and what might be a sign of something else going on. I think it's important for all of us to give each other and our young people, our teenagers, the benefit of the doubt. I think most people are trying their best. Most parents are trying their best to provide for their children. Most children are trying their best. Oftentimes when I talk to teenagers about why they don't feel comfortable talking to their parents about something, it's out of fear or guilt, and they don't want to be a disappointment to their parent. So I think most people are trying their best, and they're not trying to hide things from each other. And just opening up those lines of communication, once again, is so important for young people and adults.